as it actually.
You are listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible. Who you do business with is more important than where they're located. Bank from the comfort of your own home with Emprise Bank. Coming up, the latest episode of the KC Laboratory Podcast with Ken Swanson, Craig Stout, and Matt Lane. Coming to you on the fastest growing sports media network in Kansas City. You can find all of our channels covering all the local teams wherever you listen to podcasts or on YouTube. Just search KCSN. And now, the latest episode of the KC Laboratory.
It is a live edition of the KC Laboratory presented by Emprise Bank, member FDIC. Matthew Lane, happy Monday to you, my friend.
Thank you for wishing me a happy Monday. There's nothing I love more than a good old Monday during the non-football season. Like when there's not real games being played, there's nothing that brightens my day quite like a Monday. So I appreciate that, Kent. Same back at you. Flannel, and it's like 80 degrees here. That's a bold strategy. Craig, how you doing, pal?
It's not exactly cold here either.
Kent just up here living his mountain man life. I want to give a big shout out to our very good pal, Christian Gumminger. Congratulations, buddy. You'll find out why soon. I'm sure all of you soon enough, but congratulations, buddy. Really happy for you guys.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Congratulations to our dear pal, Christian Gumminger. Thanks to everybody that's hanging out with us today. We are going to be doing a state of the roster as we have been doing kind of the series that we started. And we are reviewing it on the cheeseburger scale because we are a quite serious program here. Just as a reminder, the rankings of cheeseburgers town topic is Andy's favorite cheeseburger. That is the highest grade you can get. Then you got Westport Flea Market, you got Whataburger, and then you got McDonald's Burger. We are going to be doing 3 positions today, the state of the positions, and outlook on the draft, free agency, etc. We're doing interior defensive line, quarterback, and interior offensive line. So, Matthew, there is offensive linemen involved today, which we will certainly be addressing. The
whole offensive line.
Nope. Your memory
the whole defensive line.
Boy, you have the memory of a goldfish. Okay. Let's start with the interior defensive line. That's IDT, that's DT, that's interior defensive line only, Matthew.
Does this include guys that can play outside and inside, or just guys?
I see what you did there, but that's
is this like a third down defensive line package?
Are they in the dime?
This is the most Maddie segment of all time.
Are they F1ing this or NASCARing this? Like nobody NASCARs anymore. I think we just gotta change it to F1. Like, so is that what's happening? Is that what we're talking about?
If Gunther Steiner can call the plays for the Chiefs, that'd be kind of fun. So
from a boat.
Craig's dreaming right now. But we're going to start with the interior defensive line today. Let's talk about the state of the interior defensive line on the Andy Reid cheeseburger scale. Matthew Lane, as the roster currently sits, what are you giving the interior defensive line on the Andy Reid cheeseburger scale?
Well, first of all, the Andy cheeseburger scale, I'm sure most people know what it is, but the quick rundown is, what is it? Town Topic is top of the notch. That's top of the line. That's not our choice. That's Big Red's. Take it up with him if you don't like Town Topic being number 1. Number 2, which is above average, we got the Westport Flea Market cheeseburger. Below average, not quite good enough. What did we end up settling with here? Whataburger. Finally, please replace this unit immediately is McDonald's, okay? So
this segment is sponsored by McDonald's.
We are looking at we'll have to switch to Burger King then, I guess. So anyway, we're looking at the defensive tackle position. I can't. Chris Jones is really good, right? Like Chris Jones is a really good football player. And I like Tershawn Wharton, but he's coming back from an injury and he's still kind of a rotational guy. And then the Chiefs brought back Derek Nottie, which is a good guy to have in the room, right? You want to have a guy that can play nose tackle, that can come in there and eat snaps. He's been around for a while, but outside this, what are we looking at? Daniel Wise competing with Byron Cowart, Danny Shelton trying to get onto a roster. Like this unit falls off real fast. It sounds crazy, but despite having Chris Jones, the best defensive tackle in the NFL, this is a Whataburger. And he's the only thing stopping it from being a hard McDonald's, like a McDonald's that like messes up your order. Like if it was anybody but Chris Jones, this would be like McDonald's and you get home and you realize you don't even have a burger patty in there. You just have a bun and toppings.
Yeah, it's not great outside of a potential probable Hall of Fame defensive tackle, the second best defensive tackle of his generation and the best defensive tackle in the league last year. But it takes a lot more than that because they do rotate so often with this. Chris Jones can't play the amount of snaps that you just had him play. Again, that was kind of by necessity with Turk Wharton getting hurt. You didn't have another 3 tech that you really trusted to come in there and do that. You had Colin Saunders that was kind of taking over the nose tackle position. He's in New Orleans now. You had Derek Nottie, who was having arguably the worst year of his career, took a serious step back this year. And then you had a bunch of guys on the interior. Brandon Williams, Danny Shelton got to play just for a little bit there, but there weren't a whole lot of bodies on the interior that you really could count on other than Chris Jones. Now, at this point in the season, with the depth chart the way that it is, there's still not a whole lot of bodies on the interior that you can count on other than Chris Jones. I definitely think that they're going to add some players, and maybe that we'll get into that here in just a little bit here. But as it stands right now, that Hall of Fame level player is the only thing keeping this from being arguably the worst position group on the team this year. And that is hard to do. Obviously, you do have Chris Jones there. That makes a big difference. So, yeah, it's a solid Whataburger for me, too.
Same. Sweep it. Whataburger. You're thrilled to be enjoying a burger, but you know that there's maybe some better ones out there for you. And I think with Chris Jones is the obvious, like he's exactly, he's one of the best defensive linemen in the entire league. But man, it's just so much. There's just leaves so much to be desired surrounding him. And the Chiefs have been able to navigate that without. I mean, they have one blue chip on their defensive line. They've had one blue chip on their defensive line here, honestly, for a while. I mean, Frank Clark has been paid like a blue chip, and we all love Frank Clark very, very much here. I don't think he played he wasn't quite a blue chip level player. So yeah, the interior has Chris Jones, and that's it. And they've been able to have a lot of success, with the front they've had, but it's a group that can be improved for sure. And I think that's the question. So how much, I guess the big question for us here, if we're sitting here today in April, how much of an investment do we think the Kansas City Chiefs need to make along the interior of their defensive line in the draft? And does Chris Jones' contract situation change that opinion one way or the other?
Well, I mean, that's the big question, right? Where do you sit right now with the Chris Jones contract extension? I know there's been various reports over the past couple of weeks that they haven't really started to tackle that endeavor. I find that hard to believe that hasn't even started, but okay, maybe. But then also there's reports now that that's like the last thing from Nate Taylor at The Athletic was saying that's kind of the last thing this Chiefs defensive overhaul needs is to get this Chris Jones extension done. So like, I don't know where they are on this scale right now. Chris Jones very much has got to the point of Brett Veach saying, no, I'm good, right? He's hit that point where he's old enough. You can make a case that his best football is now going to be behind him. So why are you going to empty the bag on Chris Jones? That's kind of not exactly what they did with Tyreek Hill, but same general concept of they didn't want to pay him top money. Maybe age was a factor. Maybe it wasn't. That's just kind of where they got to, right? And so now, are they there with Chris Jones? It gets really hard with Chris Jones because I think he took a very visible, a very evident step this past year. Like he clearly elevated his game to a level that it wasn't. Tyreek Hill's been the same guy, really damn good this entire time. Chris Jones got better. So now are you going to pull the plug as he's potentially still peaking? I don't know the answer. I doubt it. Like it seems like a good idea for the Chiefs to lock in this guy that kind of fixes a lot of problems they have on defense. And if you do that, I think that completely changes how much you have to invest in the defensive line.
Yeah. Turning 29 here in, a couple of months, actually has a step down in his cap hit this year from last year. He was a $29.4 million cap hit last year, stepped down to $28 million only in his cap hit this year, but they can save a lot of money by extending him. That opens up a lot of stuff here. It's one of those that you look at and you go, well, why didn't that happen before free agency? Obviously not something that they really felt like they needed all that money to make the moves that they needed to make. And by and large, I agree with them. I haven't looked at a lot of these moves and said, oh man, I really wish they would have done X, Y, and Z. There are a couple moves that I would still like for them to have. They obviously want a cushion. That way, if there's a team that's dealing at the trade deadline, you want to be able to have that flexibility to make moves. And they like to go into the season with $5 to $10 million in cap space, just in case they got to sign guys for injury, what have you. So Chris Jones is the most logical guy to make that. But yes, as Maddie said, Brett Veach, a guy that doesn't like to pay olds. And this is going to be an old. I would agree with all that sentiment if they had tried to add more bodies on this defensive line, but they just haven't, even at the defensive end position. I know that we're going to get into the dime. Turk Wharton's going to come in next to him. You're going to have Mike Dana, George Karlaftis, Charles Omenihu. I like that dime grouping with Chris Jones. You take Chris Jones out of it, I hate it. Like, I really do, because he's going to be the focus for everybody that gets everybody else single teams. And if somebody is winning enough, or you have a weak link on the offensive line that a guy like Charles Omenihu can stress, now maybe Chris Jones doesn't get a double team and he can wreck the game from the interior. You got to have two guys. You got to have something for somebody to play off of. If Chris Jones isn't on this team, even moving forward here, it is a problem for that defensive line. So, yes, I fully agree that they will and should extend him this offseason. It just, as Nate Taylor's kind of alluding to there, is that going to be something that's happening quickly, or is it going to be like it was in July, like Brett Veach had kind of indicated earlier on in this offseason?
Yeah, I don't know if I've had the warm fuzzies with some of the responses about Chris Jones' extension this offseason, where it felt like a slam dunk immediately after the season. You heard Chris Jones tweeting out, I want to be a Chief for life. I still believe that to be the case, but it's just like, I don't know if I just have had the warm fuzzies about it. Like it's a lock. And like, I still like would heavily anticipate that to be the case. It just feels different. Let's look at the draft though. And, anytime you add to a different defensive front, anytime you add big bodies on either side of the line, it's typically a smart investment. That being said, I know you guys want to talk about the dime. We talk about Chris Jones. We're going to assume that Chris Jones gets extended. I would be stunned if it didn't. What kind of investment do you think the Chiefs should make? And do you like what's the earliest you'd feel comfortable? And you can tie specific players to this if you'd like, whatever you feel comfortable with, or however you want to do this, Maddie.
So here's the thing. The Chiefs need a nose tackle. Derek Nottie wasn't getting the job done last year. He was losing snaps to Colin Saunders. The Chiefs also brought Brandon Williams in to compete. Nottie still played a lot of snaps, but like, he was not this clear-cut guy that they want out there on every first and second down. And I think he still had kind of taken a step back from where he'd been. So the Chiefs do need a nose tackle. My thing is, though, don't spend draft capital on nose tackles. It's not worth it unless they're providing you pass rush. And I don't know if you have that in this class. I don't know if you have a Vita Vea to go out there and give you a little bit of real pass rush as a nose tackle. So instead of even looking for the nose tackle position in the draft, go back to the free agency. Shelby Harris, Michael Brockers, Al Woods. Yes, I'm naming guys all over 30, but the Chiefs are okay paying a veteran over 30 on a 1-year deal to come in and play nose tackle. There's guys out there that can come in right away and be the best nose tackle on this team that are available. There's a handful of them that are still available. Brandon Williams, still available. Like, they have guys that they could bring in to play that role. So, like, I do think that's where they should go address the nose tackle spot. Don't get a rookie. Don't use draft capital with the intention of these guys to start. It's where I would approach the nose tackle specific spot.
Craig, real quick, I want to jump in here real quick, because we do have to take a break, and then we'll be right back after this.
Whether you're a Chiefs, Royals, Sporting KC, KC Current, K-State, KU, or Mizzou fan, we've got you covered. Thanks for watching this production of KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Man, I took that break with such urgency. I scared Jordan a little bit, I think. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're watching. Appreciate everybody that is watching. KCSN Draft Guide releases on Wednesday. This is the last time you'll talk to all three of us before the guide releases on Wednesday. 300 plus pages of Chiefs specific content. It's $12.99. It's going to be awesome. I've had a sneak preview because I'm putting it together. It's pretty good. Our buddy Matt Stagner from AP, he wrote a incredible season review. It's
Always
awesome.
does.
Oh my gosh, this is my favorite one. It's my favorite one.
Oh,
I can't wait for y'all to see it. I cannot wait for you
I'm
guys
gonna
to
cheat and go read it right now.
You can't, which is
Lies.
something I'm going to hold over your head right now. You
False.
haven't seen it yet. You could probably email Stags or text Stags.
I got my fingers in all sorts of different pots here. I can get there.
All right, back to the defensive tackle. The draft capital needed to add or to use / I mean, yeah, you said it. There's some interesting free agent options there, Craig.
Yeah, there is. You've got some dudes in free agency. If you wanted to add another guy, Brandon Williams could come back to this team and help round out the nose tackle position. The only way that I'm taking a nose tackle at this point is if a guy, is really falling. Like you're sitting in day 3, the guys that you like are off the board. Keandre Coburn's there. You're looking at him going, hey, I really like that guy. He's a good locker room fit. He's going to be a guy that we're just going to kind of set and forget the nose tackle position for 4 years. Yeah, make the move there. Where I'm looking as more of a penetrator here. Turk Wharton is in this role right now, but he's on a 1-year deal. Like they just brought him back for a 1-year deal. They're going to need somebody to be next to Chris Jones in the dime to kind of spell him a little bit in the nickel and in base. And then eventually you want a guy that can kind of take over for Chris Jones. In the meantime, you want to have a tandem of guys that can really get after the passer and play really well as penetrating down linemen. I'm on board with spending even like pick 63 or 95 on that sort of guy, because I feel like that's where the sweet spot is. If you told me that you went and you added Kalijah Cansey to this defensive line, I'd be kind of excited about it, just as a penetrating defensive lineman, just thinking of it solely from the point of a guy that can get after the passer a little bit from that perspective. Gervon Dexter is another guy that you could look at there. I'm just not targeting big space eaters to try and free up Chris Jones. I want a guy that when the opposition doubles Chris Jones is going to make them pay for most of the single teams that he receives. And most of that's going to be in the dime, in some of their lighter nickel packages. That's where I'm looking to add maybe another defensive lineman here, because they can go get nose tackles off the street to do basically what they ask their nose tackles to do.
Well, the interesting thing about this class to me too is I think there's a lot of nose tackles that are going to be available in this draft when you look up, up and down. So I'm actually a proponent of investing at the nose tackle position somewhere on day 3, because I think that's where value could be. Guys, we Broderick Martin out of Western Kentucky, Gerard Clark, another space eater out of Coastal Carolina. There's a lot of guys like that are going to be available on day 3 of the draft. And I think it's actually a way to maximize getting value on day 3 of someone that can actually come in and contribute in a limited role. Like, you want to talk about hitting on a day 3 pick. I think these are the kind of guys that you can grab one of them late and be able to introduce them into your defense, give them a little opportunity, and then send Derek Nottie, wish him well after this season, so I think there's a potential, like just some of these guys that are out there, there's some true nose tackle type players in this draft that are very, very intriguing to me, which that might be part of the reason that the free agency class is what it is at this point too. Mm-hmm. Obviously the valuation on that position is kind of shrinking a little bit too. Before we move on from defensive tackle though, Maddie, I do have something we need to talk about and I want to ask you about, because we were playing around today and both of us separately mocked.
Hopefully it's more defensive tackle talk.
It is. It's Brian Bresee out of Clemson. We both separately mocked him into the Chiefs in round 1 as one of those potential, hey, if the Chiefs are going best player available, this is one of those guys that could be best player available. Brian Bresee very well could fit that mold. You're talking about a guy that can penetrate into a gap. There you go. I mean, but how do you feel about round 1 Brian Bresee?
I think you're getting probably really good value. You're probably getting a best player available type guy there at the end of round 1. The football athlete that Bresee is fantastic. If you go back to just his true freshman film, he was a monster. He's battled through injuries, off field, like family issues. Like, he's battled through a lot of stuff throughout his college career, right? This guy has not had it easy, but you can't deny the football athlete on the field. The one, I don't want to say issue, but the hard part with Brzee is, where does he play in this Chiefs defensive line? Because he can't go play nose tackle even for a couple reps. That's not his game. He's quite literally just a spell to Chris Jones or a third down pass rusher, and that's fine. I have no issues with that. But what are you doing if you lock Chris Jones up for 3 more years, and you have Tershawn Wharton and Brian Brzee? You have a lot of guys that I don't know how you're putting on the field together at the same time. And that's not an issue by itself, but with a round 1 pick, is that the best way to expend draft capital, is drafting that particular player? I don't know. I like the talent. I love the player. I think you can make it work. Maybe you try to use him like Calais Campbell, where he plays a lot as a strong side defensive end and then reduces inside. That's another possibility. Like, I think there's ways to make it work. But back to Craig's point, I think you look in the late day 2, round 2, round 3. He mentioned some guys, but Mozzie Smith, Keanu Benton, Jacqueline Roy, Zach Pickens. There's a whole host of guys that I think could double as a solid 3 tech and a solid nose tackle. Maybe they're not elite at either one, but you get a full 3 down. You're replacing Colin Saunders with an upgrade, and you can do that on day 2. That's where my eyes would go. I'm not upset at Brzee. I just think there's a better fit there on day 2, and there's probably 6 guys that I think are going to go in that range that would make a ton of sense.
And I like Brzee as well. Don't get me wrong. He's a round 1 talent. That's why he's being talked about that way, or an early round 2 talent. But I'm with Maddie in the perspective that he's looking at it there. I'm with him, because I look at other guys that maybe I also like in this draft, like maybe a Dante Stills, that isn't the same kind of player, but not far off from a size and weight perspective. He's a couple inches shorter, about 10 pounds lighter, but a similar athletic profile and similar length. And Stills is a guy that you can play on the edge on some of the early downs and then kick him inside. And he looks good in both perspectives there. Just not a guy that's played a ton on the interior all the time there, West Virginia. That front is wild to watch. They just move dudes around a line all over the place. So he's got lots of experience. But that's why when I look at Brzee, I'm like, I get it. I get his fit and I understand it. And he's certainly a better player right now. But I'd almost rather take the gamble later on that type of guy that isn't just a super ideal fit for the formation right now with a guy like Stills.
All right, time to move on to the quarterback position. Andy Reid cheeseburger scale on quarterback.
Do I need to run it down, or do you think you two running it down at the beginning of the show is good enough?
I think
what is a cheeseburger
it's probably
scale?
worth.
Can you explain it?
Sure. We are ranking all of the positions on the Andy Reid cheeseburger scale.
Yeah.
Town Topic is elite, best of the best. Westport Flea Market is above average. Whataburger is below average, and McDonald's is, why are we here? What are we doing? I don't want to be around anymore.
I understand it.
Okay. So where does the quarterback position stand on the Andy Reid cheeseburger scale?
Can we just remove Mahomes and just do the backup quarterback, or do I have to do the whole thing together?
You have to do the whole thing together.
Well, okay, then it's Town Topic. It's just, the problem is I'm going to say it's Town Topic, and then we're going to talk about the fact that they need to add somebody because Shane Buechele's not good enough to be a backup quarterback. That's why I was asking, right? Normally, if for this exercise, I'm putting somebody at Town Topic, that means there needs to be zero investment, spend zero time worrying about investment, and move on. The problem is they need an investment, yet they're already a Town Topic. So do with that what you will, Craig.
Let's all just acknowledge that the Chiefs position is Town Topic because Patrick Mahomes on a bad ankle is still better than everyone else in the National Football League. And let's just talk about the backup quarterback position. How about
Cam
that?
Newton might have something to say about that.
It really is one of those that you don't really need a stud backup because your entire team is crafted around Patrick Mahomes. Yes, Chad Henne coming in, winning some games. That's awesome. That doesn't move the needle. that really doesn't move the needle. Yeah, Shane Buechele's probably not coming in and leading the 99-yard touchdown drive, and that's awesome. Like, don't get me wrong. There's something to be said there, but this isn't one that I look at for significant investment. This is one that I see a lot of people making a lot of, I love that Yoda 05 Town Topic, but no fries. Love it. Absolutely love it. I see a lot of people that are saying, it needs to be an investment in day 3 of the draft. I don't know that day 3 of the draft really moves the needle any more than Shane Buechele does. Like, I think that
just calling Kent out. You weren't here, Craig.
I'm just saying.
We did a mock draft where we let the people decide, and Kent tried to push Aiden O'Connell on the people.
Of course
for like
he did.
4 straight
I tried
rounds.
to push Clayton Tune on the people. Thank you very much.
Okay. I was going to say, if it's Aiden, of course, because Aiden's going to be a guy that's going to be awesome in the film room. And that is what that position is at this point. A guy to help Patrick in the film room. I don't know that a rookie's going to be that guy. Like, what is Aiden O'Connell going to come in? I like Aiden O'Connell. He's a very smart dude. What is he going to come in and offer to Patrick Mahomes at this point? If anything, Patrick's going to be showing him the ropes more. It's going to be more stuff there. If this position is really just kind of a second set of eyes sort of deal, and then if you got to take some snaps, well, let's hope that Patrick can get back on the field in a hurry. Well, guess what? Shane Buechele can do that just as well as anybody else. So for me, I don't think it matters. Like, I don't think the lack of fries here matters at all, at least not to me.
I think it's a Matty Lane kind of scenario at Town Topic because you probably have 2 cheeseburgers is really what it is, because that's how good Patrick LaVon Mahomes is.
Skip the fries. 2
Like, you could just
cheeseburgers,
skip the fries because you got 2 cheeseburgers. Is really you got 15 cheeseburgers. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're watching. Appreciate it, everybody that is. I tend to lean like I would rather Clayton Tune be the Shane Buechele upgrade rather than be the third quarterback behind Shane Buechele. There's still some free agents out there. You know, we could throw a Blaine Gabbert out there. We could throw a Chase Daniels still around. You could throw like a Brett Rippon, John Wolford. Like there's some names out there that you could see the Chiefs maybe grabbing at a near vet minimum deal. Do any of those do it for you? Is that good enough for you guys? If we throw like a Blaine Gabbert out there, is that fine? Cool. Moving on.
I mean, I feel a lot better if they have a Blaine Gabbert out there because I think that he can come in and has a chance to lead a drive that scores a touchdown. And I'm not saying that Shane Buechele can't. It's just I have no reason right now to think that he can. I just haven't quite seen it. When he came in the preseason, I know a lot of Chiefs fans liked it because there was some success. But boy, just the control of a preseason offense just looked a lot different than it did for Chad Henne. And I think you see that when the live shots get fired for Henne, he was still very much in control every chance he got. I think Gabbert could come in and be in control for a series, for a game. So like, yeah, it would make me feel better. I don't know though, if the Chiefs are that interested in bringing in an older veteran that doesn't really know the system at this point in time. You no longer bring in somebody to help Mahomes learn the NFL. Now you're just kind of trying to bring in somebody that is going to study film with him, that he's going to get along with and help him see things differently. I don't know if that has to be a vet. So like, I don't know. That's why it's a weird spot for the Chiefs. I don't know if it has to be a veteran anymore. You might just need somebody to sit in the room with him and go over what they see versus what he sees.
I mean, and to be fair, Matt Nagy's here. Like, I mean, that does make a big difference having Matt Nagy here. Not to say that Eric Bieniemy couldn't offer some things here and there, but it's a different sort of beast having that guy that's as comfortable with the quarterback position as he is being the other voice in the room. So if you did want to tell me that they were going to take another swing on a talent at some point just to kind of see, build somebody up, trade him off. I mean, at this point, Patrick Mahomes is going to be playing for this team for another decade. So a lot of the other Andy Reidisms, develop a quarterback and trade him for picks. Like, you're not going to get that. That's not happening because he's not going to see the field in the same way that some of those other dudes did. So from that perspective, if you wanted to add that in, but I think that Matt Nagy moves the needle enough to where you don't have to have a veteran at that point.
Yeah, it's just a weird middle ground to be in because, like, you know, Mahomes, it's not a youth thing for Mahomes. It's a like, what do you want in the room kind of thing with him. And I think that's what is the fascinating question. If you want a guy that's played a lot of football that knows the offense, I'm not advocating for this. I am not advocating for this. Carson Wentz is out there. I am not advocating for that.
But have you ever felt like Carson Wentz was the guy that's like going to help you get the command of a room and or what you're seeing on film.
How much do we think that Dougie P's vouching for Carson Wentz?
So listen, let's just get the best of both worlds. Get the veteran and the young guy. Get Stetson Bennett in the building. He's the same age as Blaine Gabbert, and yet you can still draft him. It's perfect.
Chase Daniel knows the offense too. There's the other one.
Also the same age as Stetson Bennett, so it works out either way.
That's a very good point. We're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this.
Whether you're a Chiefs, Royals, Sporting KC, KC Current, K-State, KU, or Mizzou fan, we've got you covered. Thanks for watching this production of KC Sports Network. Proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Stetson Bennett. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're watching. Appreciate everybody hanging out. Like I said, the KCSN draft guide is releasing on Wednesday. It's 300 plus pages of Chiefs specific draft content, and you get 3 months to KCSN Substack when you purchase it for $12.99. The link to purchase is in the description of this show, whether you're watching or listening right now. Link is in the description of the show. Make sure you pre-order so that when it launches on release day on Wednesday, you get it sent to your inbox ready to roll. So let's move to one other position tonight. We're going to go to the interior offensive lineman on the Andy Reid cheeseburger scale. Maddie tried to do this at the launch of this series by clumping everyone together. But Matthew, where does the interior offensive line rank on the Andy Reid cheeseburger scale?
So not accounting for the tackles. Okay. They are definitely a town topic cheeseburger here with your fries, whatever you want with it. This interior offensive line unit is giving you. You have the best center in the NFL. You have arguably the best guard, worst case, the top 4 guard in the NFL. Trey Smith is not as good as those two guys overall, but a lot of what the Chiefs do on offense, specifically in the run game, funnels through him. He is a guy that allows you to do very specific things very well. He matters a ton, and he's a plus starter, right? So you have all 3 of the guys across the interior that are starting are good. Nick Allegretti can step in any game you need him and give you adequate snaps at all 3 positions on the interior. That's a big bonus player. Austin Ryder has played in a Super Bowl. He's won a Super Bowl while playing. So and that's another backup. I
think Austin Ryder's been here for at least parts of 2 seasons now, and he started a Super Bowl for this team and can't sniff the field, see the field. It's incredible. Just that perspective on where we started on this interior offensive line 5-6 years ago to where we are now. Right. It's just absurd. Sorry.
Well, and then Mike Caliendo, the guy, I'm not saying there's great things, but I think he acquitted himself well last year in the preseason. This is a very good interior offensive line room. There's starters and there's depth there, I think. So, this is the biggest town topic burger I think you can get.
Yeah. It's like A5 Wagyu beef cooked at Town Topic. I mean, this is top notch. It's the best position group that the Chiefs have on their entire roster. They have made some significant investment in here, but it has paid off. It hasn't always been the case with Brett Veach when he goes in, tries to make big splash moves, tries to focus on position groupings. It doesn't always work out this way, but it most definitely has. And Patrick Mahomes is very comfortable in that pocket because of those guys, so much so that this would be the single most frustrating position that they could draft in the first 3 days or the first 2 days of the draft, first 3 rounds of the draft of any position that's out there. Yes, Joe Thuney's getting older. They need to be thinking about his replacement soon, but this is not something that they need to focus hard on because it is so good, and there's not a ton of real monetary investment in it at this point. You spread out Joe Thuney's cap hit over the other 2 guys, you're still at a very comfortable spot on your interior offensive line. So they're set. I don't expect them to make big moves, but I do expect that they might look for a guy maybe a little bit later.
It was just massive for them to be able to get, Creed we talk about significant investment. It was the big Joe Thuney trade or Joe Thuney free agency signing, but then just hitting in the 6th round on Trey Smith and hitting in a big way in the 2nd round on Creed is just a game changer for this offensive line. And the Chiefs went and I know we'll look at the entire offensive line for a second. When they grabbed Jawan Taylor at the tackle spot on the left tackle, there's still a path to them being able to be good now. They could be really good for the next 2 years if they choose to. Or they could look for alternatives to move on from Joe Thuney after the season. That is how good of a job they've done managing the interior of their offensive line. So I guess I want to ask. I guess I want to talk to you guys about this. The answer, we talk a lot about a lot of the interior offensive linemen for the Chiefs tend to be former tackles.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs like a best 5 approach to a degree, but a lot of times tackles kick inside. If there's a guy with inside out flexibility at 95, I could see the Chiefs investing. Matthew's favorite player in the draft, Big Salad, Nick Saldiveri. Tackle out, he plays tackle, but he's got some, ability to play all 5. I don't know if they wouldn't take that, Craig. Honestly, I think that there's a chance they could take somebody as soon as pick 95. That kind of fits the profile of a tackle-ish. That's probably going to be a guard at the next level, but they're still taking him because he's got that tackle flexibility.
Maddie, you want to talk about your guy, Nick Saldiveri? Go for it.
Right, because he had said your name, and now I'm thrown off now. So anyway, with Big Salad here, here's the thing though about drafting him in 3rd round, whatever. You let him compete at tackle. You don't have to move him to guard right away. So from that aspect, I think Craig, who said that he'd be surprised if they invested in the interior offensive line here, if they drafted a guy that's the job is or the goal is to come in and compete for that tackle spot until he fails and then moves in, who cares? And that move probably doesn't happen this year, and they don't need it to happen this year. It probably wouldn't happen till at earliest next offseason. So at that point in time, you're drafting a tackle that you have a backup plan for. So, I personally think that's something that they should keep there. And I don't think you shouldn't draft a tackle this year if you're the Chiefs with the purpose of moving them into the interior. But if that's a fallback plan that player has, which looking through the non-day one offensive tackles, every single offensive tackle in this class might be better at guard. So have at it.
Yeah. I like Saldiveri. He's a good football player. It would make sense. And that's kind of the caveat. That's the asterisk there. If you are giving him the opportunity to play tackle, I'm completely on board with that investment. If not, be looking for those guys that, they've done a really good job of targeting those types of guys and getting good production out of them. If you wanted to tell me that Braden Daniels, who has played both tackle spots and has some inside versatility, probably needs to kick inside because of his arm length, that's a guy out of Utah that could kick inside, be on the interior. Anthony Bradford from LSU has positioned at so many different positions, but both tackle spots as well. Those are the guys that Andy Reid loves. That is exactly the type of player that Andy Reid loves. So if you're just looking for a guy to kind of round out the room, that's what I'm talking about. Target those guys in day 3, because who knows, you might find a Wiley out of that group and you're just like, oh, hey, we can live with this arm length. We can live with this a little bit more because his technique's good enough. He's a mean enough blocker in the run game. If not, worst case scenario, you've got another Nick Allegretti on your roster, somebody that can help develop. Darian Kennard, we'll go ahead and throw him in there as well. Somebody that you can keep on the interior and you don't feel bad about it because you didn't make such a heavy investment in the pick.
I wouldn't be stunned to see the Chiefs go and grab an interior offensive lineman somewhere on day 3, especially considering Nick Allegretti is on a 1-year deal. And, you have potential the ability to move on from Joe Thuney at some point if you do feel like it. If you find value, somewhere. So one other quick question, and this isn't a super realistic scenario, but it's just looking at the board and looking at everything. Let's say the Chiefs take care of wide receiver first. Okay, so they've got wide receiver off the board. So they've drafted Quentin Johnston. Let's say his teammate Steve Avila is there at 63. One of the better guards in the draft. Best player available. How tempted are you to go grab Steve Avila?
Not. I think the Chiefs do like to draft best player available when they can, but I think there is a very clear line of a position that while it's the best player available, you don't need to heavily invest in it, and especially when you have that position already filled up. I mean, we sit here and talk about how Joe Tooney's contract you can get out of after this year. I mean, yeah, but you're still eating a fair bit of cash. Like, I don't think their goal is to get out of Joe Tooney's contract after this season. If it happens, if his play declines significantly this year and they want to, sure, but I'm pretty sure they're still going to have to eat 13 million dead cap. So, like, I don't think that's their plan. So why would you want to spend a top 100 pick on a guy whose kind of only path to playing is somebody getting hurt out of your interior three?
I think that, yeah, that's fair. They could potentially, yeah, they could. I think they could post June 1 them and spread that, cut over 2 years, and they could save 16 million and get the cap next year if they really wanted to. So like that's kind of the line. I'm not necessarily don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating. I just was kind of curious. I like it's the thought experiment stuff.
Just take your offensive tackle that if they fail at tackle, they can kick inside. If Saldiveri, if Wanya Morse, if one of these Tyler Steen, if one of these offensive tackles comes in and that you don't think can cut it at tackle, you move them to guard. And same thing. If they perform well, you now have your replacement for Tooney if you want to move on, or you have your Nick Allegretti replacement until Joe Tooney's ready to move on. So I think that was kind of Craig's point earlier. So like, I think you just go tackle to a guy that transfers inside. If I have one guy that's an offensive guard only that I would love for them to draft on day 3, one day that's a guard only. It's the only guy, Antonio Maffi out of UCLA. Mm-hmm. This dude's a fire hydrant, literally a little fire hydrant. Now, I don't know if the Chiefs offense would love to have him and Trey Smith. Like that's kind of two offensive guards that do the same general thing and how they play, different body types, but they do the same thing. I think the Chiefs get by because Joe Tooney is so good at pass protection. I do think maybe they would want to hunt another good pass protecting offensive guard rather than another, mauler, but still, I think Antonio Maffi's great. So like if there's one pure offensive guard pick that I would get behind is Maffi on day 3.
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
No, I that would be great. There's good value. There's a lot of picks that they have in day 3 of the draft. I mean, I think half their picks are on day 3 of the draft, if I remember, or 6 of them might be actually, if not, I think about it. Yeah. So they've got some, opportunities, I think, to address that position on day 3 of the draft. It can be interesting to see if they do. We'll be here to break it all down. April's upon us. It's going to be a lot of fun here on KC Sports Network. You've already seen a lot of the draft breakdown stuff that we're already doing here at KC Sports Network. You're going to be getting a prospect every single day until the draft. Me and Sean Barber breaking down different players. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button on the way out. We appreciate everybody. Buy the draft guide. We'll catch you later.